Title: The Girl in the Window Who Didn't Live Next Door. The first sight. The summer I turned 11, my family moved into a narrow brick townhouse on the east side of Cleveland. The kind of place where the buildings sit so close together, it feels like you're sharing walls with strangers whether you want to or not. My bedroom was on the 3rd floor, tucked under a slanted ceiling, with a single window facing the identical house directly behind ours. The distance between our windows was narrow enough that, if you leaned out far enough, you could probably pass something across. My parents said it was a quiet neighborhood. Boring even. For the first week, I believed them. Every afternoon after school, I'd toss my backpack onto the floor and look out the window just to watch the birds settle in the wires between the houses. The window across from mine was always dark. Curtains always drawn. I assumed no one lived there. Until the day someone did. It was a Wednesday in September. School had just started, and I was sitting on my bed flipping through a comic book when I noticed movement in the window opposite mine. A girl was standing there. Maybe 10. Maybe 11. Same age as me. Straight black hair, tied back with a ribbon. A yellow sweater that looked slightly too large. Pale skin. Dark eyes. No smile. No expression. She raised her hand and waved once. Not playful. Not excited. Just deliberate. I froze for a second, unsure if I was supposed to wave back, but something about the situation made politeness feel mandatory. So I lifted my hand too. She didn't smile. She just stepped out of the frame and disappeared. The next day, she was there at the exact same time, 3:42 p.m. Same sweater. Same expression. Same slow, intentional wave. This time, I waved faster, maybe too enthusiastically, hoping she would smile. She didn't. Over the next week, waving turned into little gestures, her holding up hand-drawn pictures of animals, me writing short words on notebook paper like "Hi and you okay?" She'd tilt her head, studying the paper like she was reading each letter for the first time. But she never opened her window. She never spoke. She never smiled. Then one afternoon, I decided to ask my mom about the neighbors behind us. I expected the usual boring reply, "Oh, that's the Smiths. They keep to themselves." But instead my mom frowned. She said, "Nobody lives in that house. It's been empty for years." I remember laughing instinctively, thinking she was joking. "No," I said, pointing out the window. "There's a girl in there. She's there every day." My mom's face didn't change. "Honey," she repeated, slower this time, "no one lives in that house." I felt something cold settle into my chest. I dropped the conversation, but the next day, when 3:42 came, I sat at the window again, heart hammering, breath thin, just to prove everyone wrong. And right on time, she appeared. Yellow sweater. Blank stare. Right hand lifted. But this time, before she waved, she reached out and placed her palm flat against the glass. And I realized something I hadn't noticed before. She wasn't looking at me. She was looking past me. Over my shoulder. Like someone was standing behind me. I spun around so fast I nearly fell. But the room was empty. When I turned back to the window, she was gone. The recordings. For the next few days, I avoided the window. I tried to convince myself I had imagined the whole thing. The girl, the waving, the hand against the glass. Maybe my mom was right. Maybe the house really was empty, and I'd been talking to a shadow, a reflection, a trick of after-school sunlight. But the thing about fear is that it doesn't disappear just because you want it to. It waits. And it whispers. By the following Monday, curiosity won. At exactly 3:42, I sat cross-legged on the floor, staring at the window across from mine. My heart didn't just pound. It felt like it was shaking my whole body from the inside. And then she appeared. Same yellow sweater. Same stillness. But this time, she didn't wave. She just pressed her palm to the glass again. Slow, careful, like she was remembering how to do it. I didn't wave back. I didn't move. I just stared. And for the first time, I realized something was wrong with the scene, something I couldn't explain at first, something I couldn't unsee once I noticed it. There was no reflection on her window. No glare. No change in the glass. Just darkness behind her. Like the room she was in was so deep, so empty, that light couldn't reach the back of it. I leaned closer. My breath fogged my own window. And then she mouthed something. No sound, just the shape of words. 3 slow syllables. Don't. My chest tightened. My breathing broke apart. I turned around anyway. The room was empty. When I looked back, she was gone. That night, I set my old camcorder on the windowsill. I told myself it was proof that I wasn't making this up, proof that I wasn't losing my mind. I recorded for hours until I fell asleep on the floor. In the morning, I played the footage back, fast-forwarding through hours of nothing. 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 Then, 3:42 p.m. My heart kicked. There I was, sitting on the floor in the footage. But the window across from mine? There was no girl. Just the dark room. Curtains still. No movement. No yellow sweater. No hand. I watched again. And again. My hands started shaking so badly I could hardly hold the camera. I wanted to show someone, my mom, my dad, a teacher, anybody, but something inside me stopped me. Not fear. Recognition. Because deep down, the girl's face, the shape of her eyes, the slope of her mouth, the way she stood with her shoulders slightly forward. I knew that face. I had seen it before. In photos. Framed. On a fireplace. The girl in the window. Was me. Or rather, me from before. Before the move. Before the accident. Before the memory my family never spoke about. The truth I wasn't supposed to remember. It took me years to understand. At 11, all I knew was that every time I tried to talk about her, about myself, my mother's face would tighten in that same silent, desperate way. As if words themselves were knives. So I didn't ask questions. Not yet. But the pieces came later. As a teenager, digging through storage boxes in the attic. Old school reports. Photo albums. Therapy notes I was never meant to see. There had been another house. Another neighborhood. Another third-floor window. And there had been another girl. Not waving to strangers, but waving to no one. Staring out windows for hours, silent, expressionless, unreachable. After the accident. After the loss. After the day I stopped speaking for 6 months. I had forgotten her because forgetting was the only way to keep going. She wasn't a ghost. She wasn't a hallucination. She wasn't living in the house behind ours. She was the part of me I wasn't ready to remember. The child who stood frozen in grief. The child I left behind. The child who, when she raised her hand and pressed it to the glass, wasn't waving. She was waiting. Waiting for me to look at her. To acknowledge her. To remember her. To become whole. The message wasn't don't look back as in don't turn around. It meant don't go back to who you were before you survived. You cannot return to the life that ended. You cannot fix what broke. You can only carry it forward. Final line. Haunting, cinematic. Sometimes, late in the afternoon, I still glance out the window. Not expecting to see her, but making sure I don't forget she was real. Because she was. And she still is. Inside me. Watching. Remembering. Waiting. The return. I thought growing up would make it easier. Time is supposed to soften the edges of memory, blur them, dull them, make them easier to hold. But time doesn't erase anything. It only teaches you where to store it, so you can pretend it's not there. By the time I turned 27, I'd moved out. New city. New job. New apartment with no view of another house behind mine. For a while, I convinced myself the past had stayed where I left it. And it did, until my mother called. Her voice was quiet in the way it had always been when she was trying not to let something break. She said, "They're selling the old house behind ours. The empty one. I just thought you should know." I didn't ask why she thought that mattered. I already knew. 3 weeks later, I was back in my childhood bedroom. The room felt smaller than I remembered. The slanted ceiling lower. The window frame chipped with age. Dust still gathered in the corners where my bookshelf used to sit. The window across from mine was still there. The curtains were open now. The house was bright. Boxes stacked inside. A family moving in. Normal. Harmless. Unremarkable. Nothing like before. But I didn't look at the house for long. Instead, I sat on the floor, The same spot my 11-year-old self used to sit, and I closed my eyes. And I waited. Not for the girl. For myself. It took time. Silence does not always answer quickly. But eventually I felt her, not as a presence, not as a ghost, not as something outside me looking in, but as a memory settling into place. A door unlatching. I saw her the way she really was. Not expressionless. Not staring. Not haunting me. Just hurting. She wasn't waving to me from another window. She was calling for me from a moment I had been too young to understand. A moment where loss was too big for language, and silence was the only thing that made sense. The yellow sweater. The stillness. The empty room behind her. All pieces of a time I had locked away. I didn't cry. Not at first. It was too quiet for crying. But when the tears came, they came all at once. Sudden, heavy, unstoppable. The kind that pull breath from your lungs and shake you from the inside. I didn't fight them this time. And in that moment, something shifted. Because grief doesn't vanish when it's acknowledged. It just changes shape. I opened my eyes. The new family was still unpacking. 2 kids ran through the room across from mine. Laughing. Alive. Unafraid of windows. There was no girl in yellow. And there didn't need to be. She had finally moved. Not out of the house. But into me. The part of me that learned to speak again. The part of me that learned to live again. The part of me that learned that remembering isn't the same as returning. Memory isn't a place you go back to. Memory is something you carry. The girl in the window was never left behind. She was waiting for me to come back for her. To take her with me. To grow with her, not without her. And I did. Or I'm trying to. Some days are heavier. Some days I feel that yellow sweater like a weight across my shoulders. Some days I stand by windows longer than I should. But now I know why. I am not looking for her. I am looking with her. We survived. Both of us. Final quiet closing line. I don't wave anymore. I don't have to. I finally know she was never waving. She was reaching. And now, I reach back.